Some more people are going to filter in here in just a minute. So, well, good afternoon, everybody. Now that your bellies are nice and full and you're getting sleepy, we're going to hit you with some legal talk. Just kidding. I'm happy to introduce to you, if you haven't met her already, Michelle. She is our legal kind of advisor and counselor. If you have questions, she's the person you can call up to, and she can usually point you in the right direction, or at least help you figure out what it is you should do when you're working through any sort of situations you might find yourself in. So without any further ado, come on up, and we're so very glad to have you here.
Well, again, I'm Michelle Smith. I think I probably talked to most of you, but it's nice to put faces and names together. I put my contact information up, so please mark that down, call me, email me whenever you need me. I'm usually pretty good about getting back to you or answering on the first. I try, because that's my biggest problem. So, if you need me, you won't call me unless you really needed something. So, a little background. I've been an attorney for 20 years. It'll be 20 years this year. And I've been in-house counsel with a number of Keller Williams franchises for about 13 years. So I kind of know the ropes. I've always kind of focused on real estate, did a little bit of the mental health, guardianship, probate stuff before, but really focused on real estate law for the last 13 years. And so I am here because we thought we should answer some questions, just more of a question and answer type session. Sometimes I come with a specific topic, but this is just a whole array of questions. Mel sent me some from the front desk at Winona. I think that's where she works. And so she sent me a list, and I've gotten a couple of others. So I'm going to kind of just talk and start to go through some of the questions, but please raise your hand if you think, if it spurs anything. That's the best this works is when we kind of talk back and forth, and I just want to answer the most imperative ones. I'm going to talk a lot about what we're seeing a lot now, enforcement actions at the Department of Commerce. They usually have their little hot buttons, what they're focusing on this year as opposed to what they focused on last year and what I'm seeing. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Let's see. Let's start with Mel's questions. She wanted me to talk. Oh, these we'll get through really quick. Should the closing, you raise your hand if you know the answer to these, because most of these you guys should know. But should the closing disclosure or settlement statement, so what you get from the title company at a closing, that is uploaded when a sale closes, be a copy that was signed at closing, or can it be an unsigned copy? Well, that's what I said. I said ideally we'd want it signed, but I'm sure you've probably been to closings where maybe they wouldn't give you the signed copy for some reason. I've heard of it. So the biggest thing to remember is on .loop, and what we're asking for on the checklist is, to the best of your abilities, try and turn all these things in and do your best. But if there's ever a reason why you can't get something, you can't get a signature, just put it in there. Put in a little message saying, this time I couldn't get it with the signatures, Michelle, just FYI, and that's going to be okay. So but ideally, yes, we want the signed ones, because what is an unsigned one really doesn't tell us much, does it? So ideally we want the signed one. Once the purchase agreement is signed by all parties, is there any information that can be added to the forms without having all parties initial the change? So if you already have a final acceptance date, can you add anything? No, you're right. You're all looking at me like that's crazy. So she must have had some agents that try to add things to purchase agreements. Once there's a final acceptance date, you can't make any changes unless it's on an amendment and it's all signed by all parties. So, good. Is it ever okay to add text to a contract in .loop without obtaining all parties' initials? That's the same question. No, you can't add it. Text. Is it ever okay for an agent to sign or initial on behalf of a client if they do not have a power of attorney? Well, it's a trick question, because A, never is it okay, but B, you should not have a power of attorney for your clients. Are there special circumstances where in the past people at closings, let's say, have gotten a power of attorney and signed a HUD or closing disclosure for a client that couldn't be there? It has happened in the past, but I will tell you, we really, really frown on it. Most real estate companies now, their policy is never do we allow our agents to have power of attorney for clients. You have to get a relative, find an attorney in the community, somebody else. There have been far too many lawsuits and Commerce Department enforcement actions against agents who have power of attorneys for clients. So when I get that question, somebody will call and say, my client wants me to be power of attorney. Nope. Unless it is absolutely some crazy circumstance and Jim would have to agree to it, I would have to agree to it. It is very unlikely nowadays that we would allow it. It's just, it used to happen back in the day a little bit more often, but they say don't do it anymore. Yeah.
I'm Mark Whitehead from the Alaska office. Came, I wanted to see you.
Oh, good.
But standard practice in Wisconsin, Minnesota, is at the closing, automatically, I would get power of attorney on everything, standard paperwork over there.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, Minnesota.
Yep.
Well, you know, our Department of Commerce is very different than Wisconsin's licensing department. And so they maybe have not seen the issues we've seen in Minnesota. So
That's interesting.
it is interesting.
Attorney to sign things so that they don't have to come back in.
Knows if that I can sign that for them as their agent.
Ooh, right. I just think
I
it's
can't
a
sign
bad
on
Conflict
anything
of
on a-
interest, that would feel like, you know, that's your.
And we used to see it a little bit more often for pre-signs. So your client would come in and pre-sign and then they can't sign the HUD, back in the day when it was a HUD, because that isn't generated till the actual, both parties have signed documents. So a lot of agents would get a power of attorney to be at the actual closing after their clients have pre-signed just to sign off on that HUD. And that was the only thing. And it was not that uncommon. People used to kind of do it, at least down in the cities. I don't know, or up in the cities. I don't know if they did it as much here. But now I can tell you the big brokerages are not allowing it at all anymore. Maybe in Wisconsin they still are, but in Minnesota they're not. That's interesting. Did you have a
I
question?
went to a class recently last year that said that was
In Wisconsin or anywhere?
in Minnesota.
Okay. It's not illegal. I'm just telling you broker best practices and what's going on in the communities. Because anybody, I mean, it's not illegal to be somebody's power of attorney, right? It can happen. From the enforcement actions we're seeing, most big brokerages are saying that we're not putting our agents at risk or our brokers at risk anymore. So again, if it's something that has to be done, you'd have to get the okay from your broker in order to do it. But I don't recommend it.
Jill, do you find that, and this is a perfect example, because I would teach the paperwork classes, right? And we take things from the CE classes or the required modules, and
Right.
then we bring it back here and we teach it. And then we get something different, maybe if a situation comes up from you. And do you find, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like we're teaching one thing and then something else happens and then it's not right, and
Well,
what's right?
when you're hearing about these classes and when people are teaching the modules, what they're going to tell you is make sure you check with your broker, right? So they're going to teach you something, and then if there's something that maybe is a little gray, they're always going to say, make sure you check with your broker because brokers have their own policies on these, and that's why they do that. And anytime you call, let's say the Department of Commerce or MAR, they're going to say, check with your broker because every broker has their own policy. So there are guidelines that Commerce Department is teaching for modules, and there are guidelines that MAR is teaching, but they can't get into specifics on certain types of actions or antitrust types of things, or, you know, and so there's intentionally teaching a broad range of things, but letting agents know this may not pertain in your brokerage. And it's very true. There are small brokerages where there's just a couple of agents and the broker is fine with certain things happening. And then there are larger brokerages where you have one broker who is responsible for a lot of people, and if he gets in trouble, a whole lot of people could have a problem, and they're going to be more conservative on things because we just can't allow one renegade to do something and have it affect everybody else in the office. So you're going to have a little bit more conservative type rules from some than you are from other. And it's always been like that. That's why they are so clear about always saying, make sure you check with your broker on these because you may have broker policies that differ or are stricter.
Right.
Generally, they're a little more strict than what the baseline, law is.
So can I give you a specific, and that I think this will be one that everybody wants to know. In last year's module, they said on the arbitration disclosure,
Yep.
if your client is declining to sign that day, do not write decline across it, because what that's saying is they are forever declining arbitration. And, this is our teachers saying this is what their attorneys are telling them.
Where did they teach this class?
Well, they travel it's the state approved.
Did it come here?
It came from
Yeah.
Rochester.
Yeah.
Okay, because can I tell you?
Yeah.
Nobody else heard that line.
Really?
No, because
Oh, I was in
I-
that class.
Yeah.
in Rochester,
Yeah,
right?
Rochester.
Well, what you have to remember is that they have a booklet that they go off of.
Mhm.
And then your instructor is gonna
Yep.
talk, and they're gonna go on and they're gonna say things that maybe isn't clearly specifically written in the booklet, but they're gonna interpret things for you. The Rochester interpretation seems to differ a little bit from what everybody heard in my market, because I do this for 8 or 9 different market centers.
Mhm.
And this has come up because
Right.
I got questions from Rochester agents like,
Mhm.
well, why are we doing this when they're saying not to in the module? And so I went and asked everybody, like, are you hearing that if you write decline, that means that you can never go back? Or if you don't write decline, it's more.
But you
more
can't
than-
just leave it blank.
Well, you can.
You can.
You
can.
can
And
leave
that's
it
what they
blank.
told
But I
us
thought
to
that's
do,
right.
is just to
No,
not write
you
anything
can.
on it.
So I'm gonna tell you what my interpretation and a lot of the MAR attorneys' interpretation is a little different from what whoever your instructor was who came to
Okay.
Rochester.
Well, she's one that writes most of the
Oh, yeah, she
classes.
does. And she teaches.
Was it
Amy Tusky
Tusky
Hansen.
Hansen.
I mean, she's been doing this forever.
Okay, well, me and Amy are gonna have a little
And
discussion.
She
she's
was like
also-
adamant about this.
I went to actually when she taught up in Maple Grove too, and it was the same message. So
Okay, well, from what we're hearing from some of the other attorneys is that if you leave it blank, which she's saying to do, because then you can come back at any time, she's
Okay.
telling you,
Right.
that is poor advice to give your client.
Okay.
Because when the arbitration companies, somebody submits arbitration, and they have to show the arbitration disclosure that was signed. And let's say 3 out of the 4 parties signed it.
Can't do it then.
They're gonna say, no, you can't. And the 4th party stands up and says, wait a minute, I just signed it, and says, I wanna do it. Everybody has to, at that point, re-agree.
Sure.
So whether you decline or you leave it blank, it is the exact same thing that happens. If you don't sign it, or you write decline,
But if, I think
either
the
way, you
question
all
is if
have to
you
come
write-
back and
If you
re-sign.
write declined, it isn't about coming back and signing later versus leaving blank. I think the question was more like, if you write declined, it means that if some issue comes up, you're saying you declined arbitration, period. Like you won't, even if,
I'm not
If
changing
you
my
don't
mind.
sign
I'm
it,
forever
like,
you
declining.
just done that. If you don't sign it and you leave it blank, you just said, I do not agree to arbitration.
you don't
Right
agree to,
now.
but it doesn't say it right.
Right
No.
now.
In the future.
Well, I'm saying that's
You
how
have
she
to all
explained
come
it to
back
us.
and re-sign it, yeah. If you don't sign it, everybody has to come back and re-sign it. If you write decline, everybody would have to come back and re-agree.
So you're not declining forever. If you write declined, it's not declined forever, that you would never go to arbitration no matter what if something comes up.
It's your choice. If you were to, if somebody was to come back and say, hey, I know you declined this, or, hey, I know you didn't sign it, but would you reconsider because it's gonna cost more? Okay, I'll reconsider. It doesn't matter if you wrote decline in there or you left it blank. It's the same thing.
So
If
should
you don't all agree to it, arbitration is no longer an option, right?
Right.
And you have to go to court. Could somebody, right before they file court papers, say, wait a minute, I'm about to file the court papers, will you reconsider? I know you didn't sign it back then, but will you reconsider? Or I know you wrote decline back then, but will you? And all 4 parties can, at that point, sure. But the difference between not signing it and writing decline, in a legal sense, doesn't,
So that's, I'm
Make
just
a
letting
big
you know where it
difference.
came from, and she said
yeah.
consulting
It's very-
with her attorneys, or, the attorneys when she was preparing for this class, she was told not to write decline because it would forever give up your right to do arbitration. And so just
It's
leave it
just a
blank.
very odd, I just don't understand it.
I
I
just
get
need
what
to know
she's
how to
saying.
teach when I'm teaching the
No, I
classes
get what you're
because
saying, but it doesn't, you can't leave a contract open in perpetuity. Meaning, because you left your name, you left it blank, it doesn't mean that you get to go back and sign it 6 months later. So let's say you got multiple offers. Everything is crazy right now with multiple offers, right? Seller gets 5 offers. They sign off on 1 and 4 of them, they leave. Nope, we're rejecting these, we don't want them. One of them falls, the one they picked fell apart 2 months later. They can't go and sign their name, right, on one of those open purchase agreements,
Right.
because it doesn't just stay open in perpetuity because you didn't sign. It would all have to be resubmitted and renegotiated. Same thing with the arbitration disclosure. Just because you left it blank doesn't mean you just get to go back and sign it when you're ready. If it wasn't signed at the time, it's declined.
So
It's the same
so is there
thing.
any reason to write declined on it?
The only reason, and you don't legally have to do anything. It could be blank. The only reason why, from a broker best practices that we've seen in the past, and this is why we make policies, because we see what happens. There have been situations where a client said, I was never given that. I wanted to. I would have signed that. Every other party signed it. I want to go to arbitration, and now because of my agent, I can't go because they never showed it to me. And if we were able to say, yes, we did, you wrote declined on it, right? You saw it, you wrote declined. That is the only reason.
Are they the ones who should write decline, or can we write?
Oh, I always rather them write it. I mean, yes.
Mine usually write it and then they initial it.
And that's fine. And again, like I said before, if there are going to be so many circumstances where
Yeah.
you're going to submit .loop and say in a message, Michelle, these guys don't want to sign it. They don't want to write decline. They want to leave it open. They talk to an attorney who says it's better to leave it open. Fantastic. We have something in there that shows we didn't give them legal advice. They talk to an attorney, or this is what they're comfortable with. That's perfect. I will never say, oh, nope, you got to get that signed, or you got to, absolutely not. We just have a checklist for your admin who are, because they don't know, it's not their job to know all the nuances. And so they're going to look through it. They're going to say, oh, arbitration's missing. And they're going to check with you on it. And you're going to say, oh, in this circumstance, we couldn't do that, or we could, or why. And that's fine. We just need some sort of a record and the reasons why we're doing that. I am still not sure why they're telling people to write decline. Or not write decline. I don't think it's a bad thing to leave it open or a good thing. I just don't want our agents to go out to sellers and buyers out there and tell them, if you don't write decline on there, you can come back and agree to this later. And then have it be 8 months later and they have an issue and they say, oh, it's going to cost me a whole lot more to go to court. The other party signed this. I didn't, so I'm just going to sign it now, and we're going to go to arbitration. And then they're going to get to the arbitration company, and they're going to say, sorry.
I think
Absolutely
just to
not.
clarify, I don't think she was teaching that you could come back later and just quick sign it. I think the message was, if you wrote declined on it, it would be forever declining it. If you didn't, you could all agree later to go to it. And so I think she was agreeing with you that they all have to
I am saying
re-sign.
that whether you leave it blank or you write decline, it is the
It doesn't
exact same
Yeah.
instance
Okay.
of having to all revisit it.
Right.
You will always all have to revisit it if you don't all sign
If
it
your
at that
client
time.
declines it, then should you still sign or not sign?
Well, again, this is what a broker policy that happened because of a situation. It was another big brokerage, probably about 15 years ago. So what happened was all the parties signed it except for one of the agents. Well, their client had a huge problem 6 months later and wanted to go to arbitration. And because our agent, or it wasn't ours, but a different company's agent forgot to sign it, they couldn't go to arbitration, and their clients were forced to spend tens of thousands of dollars. Because when they tried to revisit it,
But if
The
they don't
seller
sign-
said, I'm not going to court, or I'm not going to arbitration, it's gonna cost this buyer a whole lot more to take me to court. I'm not revisiting it. So because of the agents forgetting to sign it, our client was very upset. Now they were forced to go to court because of an issue. So most of the big brokerages then instituted a policy, and you saw it if you were at other companies before this, all their agents were to sign. Everybody just signs it, no matter what. If your clients want it or don't want it, we as a company, they used to say because of E&O, they would come up with all these reasons. But that was really that case, I think, was a lot of the reason why they had. We just sign it because we don't want to be the reason why our clients can't go to arbitration if they want. Again, if one of the clients don't sign, there's no reason why we really need to. I mean, technically, one party doesn't sign, none of us, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But from an administrative policy, again, your admin are not responsible for knowing those nuances. So on their checklist, they're just looking to see, oh, is the arbitration there? Did our agent sign? Good, move on to the next. If they come to you and say, oh, you didn't sign, and you can explain, oh, I forgot here, like, thank goodness they reminded me because I'm the only one who didn't sign, great. Or, oh, my client's not signing, or their clients won't sign, so I really don't need it, and we're fine. So there's gonna be, we're not a stickler on those types of things, but you have to have a checklist because it's not fair to your admin to have to guess on that kind of stuff. So that's why the
But
policy
see, since
is there.
June's gone.
I know.
She was.
But I mean, again, in that class, it was if your
Yeah.
client signs, you
Yes.
sign. If your client doesn't sign, you
Don't
don't
sign.
sign. So
Right.
you do what your client does.
And it's
That's what
fine,
we were-
but
Cause otherwise it would seem like you're not representing,
Well,
like if
no,
I sign it and my clients decline or opt out, my clients opt not to sign it,
right?
and then I sign it,
Yeah,
then to
but
me,
it's
it was
very
like I'm
easy.
not.
No, it's very easy to tell them it's a broker
Yeah.
policy,
Yeah,
it's an
exactly.
E&O thing that we need to do.
Or
It's very
just to
easy to
say
say.
that,
Just sign it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
sign it.
no, just to say that you may decline now, you may change your mind down the road. I'm signing so that you know I agree to arbitration. along
And if
with
you need to come back to me, I'm gonna be okay
Right.
with re-signing it. It's not a big deal. It really isn't. And you all know as agents, if somebody didn't sign and I missed it, it's really not gonna be that big of a deal. But as a policy, it's just a lot easier, so you don't have to remember on it, especially when we're training new agents.
That's the big thing,
You
yes.
just want them to have kind of an easy reference that we just sign it because we don't want to be the reason. And if they don't sign it, they don't get to go anyway, but we don't ever want to be the reason why somebody has to now hire an attorney and spend 2.5 years in district court when they could have gone to arbitration and been done in 30 days because of us, So that's why companies have kind of instituted that. I am seeing a pull away from it quite a bit now, at least in the Twin Cities. There's a number of brokerages that are not having their agents sign it anymore, and they don't care if they're the reason why they don't get to go to arbitration. Smaller companies, I haven't seen a lot of the bigger ones, but, and again, different brokers have different policies. But that's the reasons behind why it's been like that. Does that make sense?
And well, and arbitration has a value. I mean, after a certain value, then you're gonna hire an attorney anyway.
I would
I mean,
always tell somebody that, yes.
what's the limit on?
There's no legal limit. You don't ever
Oh,
have to
there
have,
isn't.
no, you don't ever have to have an attorney in
Okay.
arbitration. You always can have an attorney.
No,
in
I thought there was a
arbitration.
value, like
I
anything
think like
over-
small
No,
claims court
small
amount,
claims
yes.
court is, you can go to court with no attorney up until, well, it used to be 12,000.
I think it's like 14, yeah.
15 now. So you don't need an attorney to go to court if it's under 15,000. Anything over 15,000, you would have to have an attorney. Arbitration, it could be $500,000 claim and never have to have one.
Limit.
Not that I would ever recommend that. I mean, if there's a big claim, you're most likely gonna wanna bring a lawyer with you. But you don't ever have to. And so that's why some people like arbitration, because they don't have to hire an attorney.
Can you still do arbitration and if things don't work out, then?
No.
So it's one.
Arbitration is a final
Okay.
decision. It's just like a court of law. You cannot appeal an arbitration. And so that's why some people like court, because you can appeal a court ruling. There are benefits and negatives to both, and that's why we can't give our opinion.
And that's your job, is just to explain the pros and cons
Yeah,
and
you
let them
can't
decide.
give up, you can't, you
In the
just
whole
can't.
letter.
Because I've
it says
seen some
you're
great.
You're right to go to court. It's
Yes.
right there.
Absolutely,
yeah.
yeah. And some people love that, and I've seen circumstances where it was the best thing ever. I was so glad that our clients chose arbitration. It worked out great for them. And others where, thank goodness, they went to court. They really needed an attorney or a judge to make the determination as opposed to an arbitrator. So,
So the limit of arbitration isn't $15,000. I thought it said that in there.
no, there's no limit to arbitration.
What's the 15,000?
That's
Small.
a
Small
small
claims
claims
court
court.
amount.
I think it's explaining that if you go to court and you don't want an attorney, you can still do that up to 15,000. But no arbitration. I've been to arbitration cases that are hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You can't go to court even under 15,000 if everyone agrees to arbitration, right?
Correct. Right. So you can't go to small claims court if you agree that. So,
Can we make it clear what our policy is?
Yes.
We sign arbitration, and if your people don't want to sign it, have them write decline where their signature was and initial it. Or, just decline and initial.
So if they're signing
That's perfectly
electronically, how do I
clear.
do that?
Huh?
If they're signing electronically, so they have the option to sign or not sign, then how do I have them write decline? They don't have the option to do that.
yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
What do you guys do?
They just decline it.
I just
It says exactly decline on the option.
Oh, they typed decline, she said, in her offer. They typed decline.
We had a text box on top.
But
So
they,
I'm here for everybody. Good job.
Well, you can do that. You can add the text box on Authentisign as well, but if you're sending it to them and they haven't decided yet, they have to elect either to sign or not sign
Yeah.
at the moment of e-signing, and they can choose when they click on it to accept.
And
or
don't ever
decline.
tell them to sign decline if they're not ready to.
Right.
I mean, that's okay.
right,
You can
so,
always
but
come
that's, but
back.
if Jim wants them to write declined and initial, if they're signing
Exactly.
electronically, I don't know how they do that.
Well, you,
Tell them to put it in an email or something.
yeah,
Just have something.
again,
back
it's
there.
something in writing that we can say, come back to and say, here, Michelle, I know they're suing us because they said we didn't show them arbitration, but here's my email that they said,
Yeah.
I don't want to write decline on there because I'm not ready to make a decision, but I don't want to sign. Something. Again, there's gonna be circumstances where
Even a
not
handwritten
everybody is
note,
gonna
you
do
can
it.
extend the time. You make a handwritten note on there that they're decided not to, just do something.
Yeah. I get all these what ifs all the time. Well, what if they won't do this? And what if they won't do that? Well, let's just wait and to see, because every circumstance, usually there's a solution for, and we come up with something. You know, it may not be 90% of the time, yes, they've made a decision and they write decline. 10% of the time, maybe they haven't made a decision. That's okay, you know?
I mean, like I
We'll
just
come
had
up with it.
buyers, one of them declined to sign and the other one accepted the signature. And then I'm supposed to now go back to him and send him an email and say, please tell me that you're not gonna.
Well,
sign
it doesn't
I mean, just-
matter. No, at that point, if one of the buyers writes decline, we're done.
They don't write decline. In the signature on Authentisign, if he's either accept the signature or decline the signature. So nothing's written, it's just no signature.
Well, here's, as a good agent, what should you do if you have two buyers and one of the spouses signs it and one doesn't?
Just make sure that.
You
it
sure as
isn't
heck better call your client and find out what you guys want to do. That is your job as an agent, because now
Okay, so
you
I know,
have a
I already
problem.
know. I had the conversation with them ahead of time. He does not want to sign it, she does. So that's why she doesn't care, is basically, I think she just clicked it. Oh, he's against it. Well, he did not sign it. So this is where it's like, so it's not signed. To me, that's due diligence. I know he didn't sign it and he wasn't going to, but now I need him to send me an email or write a note and say that he's not gonna do it.
Well, I don't know, I would think, as somebody, I would want to send them an email saying, just so you're aware, I want to make sure you're aware that because only one of you signed it, arbitration is no longer an option. They don't have to send you anything back, but you sent that to them because now you've done your job. And they know that, even though she's gonna come back maybe someday and say, I wanted arbitration and now I gotta go to court. And you say, I told you, it's not my fault. I told you that if only one spouse signs it, you gotta go to court now. We don't have it. It's just a good idea to always have a record. And in real estate, remember, if it's not in writing, it never happened. So if you have conversations like you said you did, which is great, a judge doesn't care if you had a conversation. They only care as if, was it in writing? Can you show me in writing that they understood that if only one spouse signed it, arbitration was no longer an option? So I think it's a good opportunity for you to be able to get it down in writing, you know, and not have to ever have a question about whether you counseled them on what it means if only one person signs it or one doesn't. I don't know. I mean, that's an unusual, I mean, that doesn't happen. Usually spouses kind of agree, you know.
We aren't spouses, so that's.
Oh, that could be. Now I understand. That makes more sense. That makes more sense, but yeah. So anyway, call me if any time there's a question, something that's a little different, and we can talk through it. We can always figure it out, always. There's always a way to figure it out, and sometimes it just can't be the standard that we've set up to make it easier for training, and that's okay. We can always work it out, but just give me a call and we'll figure it out. Okay, so we talked about power of attorney. Is it a requirement that the agent provides their clients with a copy of the final and complete purchase agreement and all forms that are part of the contract? Yes. So apparently we're getting some questions about it, because now that everything is electronically signed, sometimes agents forget that after everything is signed by both parties, even though electronically, you need to make sure that you sent them a completed copy of everything. So that's a good reminder, because it's not as easy as when we all sat at a kitchen table and then we delivered it ourselves and sat there while the seller signed it. We talked about arbitration. You had a question about earnest money, right? Copy of earnest money?
Do we make copies of our earnest money?
That is also an excellent question. We're trying to get away from it, right? The MLS has created these receipts now, or MAR has created the receipts for the specific intent that we don't want checks in our systems because of privacy. So we are trying to get away from it. The difficult part right now is we still have some title companies or lenders that require it. And so what we run into is when we get a lot of calls like, can you send me a copy of the check? And we say, well, we don't have a copy. We just have a receipt, or, you know. So we have still been asking for the copy of the earnest money check just until the lenders kind of get up to speed to where the realtors are. Eventually, it will completely go away, and we won't have those copies.
But why can't they just get it from their client? Their client can go to the bank and get it. I think from the risk module, we were told that someone could hack into our system. We have copies of checks, and we as an office said we were not going to.
I agree. I would prefer not to collect them.
It's not our information to give. That's the way I look at it.
Right. And maybe your lenders here are better about it.
They can do it online.
Get it from your client.
Yeah, I never.
I think it's safer not to.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you the reason why some people are still doing it is because of the lenders, but I think it's safer not to. The other thing I see a lot is people making copies of driver's license and uploading them to .loop. Don't do that. I don't want that in our system. We don't need their driver's license in our system. I mean, what if it got hacked, right? You have the driver's license numbers, and so you just have to be careful about that kind of stuff. Those are the reasons why people still make copies. I think it's safer not to. And if you can talk to a lender and say, can you please go directly to the buyer? We don't want that, you know, that responsibility. That should solve it right there.
Yeah, there's one out there.
No, my bank like,
Oh, we get it in the Twin Cities.
Those are the good old days, though.
constantly.
We used to always do that, right? We would just send it,
Constantly,
so they just think it's quicker. I'll just go to the realtor to get it because it's faster.
Well, they want a whole package from
Right.
us, and it should be part of the package. And the lenders in the Twin Cities are constantly upset that we don't have the earnest.
They'll get over it.
They'll get over it. The other thing you asked about was marital status.
I'm a newer agent, so I'm always curious, why did they ask for marital status on the contract?
It's because it prompts title to be able to ask the questions on how are you taking title to the property as a joint tenant or a tenant in common. And you won't, if you're married, you have to ask that question. If you're single, you don't have to worry about it. There's nobody to jointly take title with. But if you're married, you can choose which way. And so it is talking about, it's helping to prompt that. It's for the title. It's really for the deed. You know, it's going to determine or help determine how you're going to take the title. Yeah.
It's not required.
To say if you're
Say
married,
Married or single or whatever.
you don't have, no. If they refuse, they say, we're never going to tell them. Right, they want to decline.
You give up your right. to
No,
be married.
and again, they might say, my attorney said not to put that. Fantastic. We never give them legal advice ever. And so they, you know, it's on the standard contract. If they choose not to, I would never say, oh, you can't get paid till you get an M or an S. No.
The Jim can't come back on this and go, you left mine.
No, no. Now,
Just put other.
other. Well, nowadays, you can never know. But no, that's why they ask for it. And let's remember the whole thing they teach at all the licensing courses about 1 to buy, 2 to sell.
Right.
Has always been a thorn in my side because it's really technically, you know, if your spouse needs to be on the loan, you have to have both on the purchase agreement. The lender is going to shove it back at you. So it's not always, well, I got one of the buyer's signature, I got a done deal. Well, not if they both have to be on the loan, right? So what they're talking about 1 to buy, 2 to sell is from a legal aspect of once you get married, everything kind of gets lumped in, and now you are part owner of that property, even
I've
if
had
you weren't
people-
there when you purchased it.
I've had
That's
people,
what they mean.
they weren't even here when I purchased this house. He shouldn't have anything to do with this. And I mean, they get upset.
Yeah,
Sorry, it's out of my
that's
hands.
what they mean by
Yeah.
the 1 to buy, 2 to sell, but some realtors take it to heart,
Yeah.
where it just means, oh, I only ever need one buyer's signature. No,
Yeah.
that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is be
You can always
careful
add-
when you get married.
You can add to the assets, but when you start getting rid of assets, I, as your married
Right.
person, need to
Well,
know.
here's something
Yeah.
that one of my sellers
Exactly.
forgot about is he packed away all of his death certificates. His wife passed away over 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's selling
I
his
know
house. She's on title with him.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to go down and purchase another death certificate because he packed them and doesn't know where they're at.
Right, and title's gonna say, we can't record this
Yeah.
without that. You gotta get us a death certificate.
I mean,
So,
it's things that you don't think about that.
no, but that's a great tip whenever you're dealing with an estate or
Yes.
somebody has passed away or a power of attorney or a trust. There's extra documents and things that you have to think about. And if you haven't ever done one, that's a great time to call up, an experienced agent or call me or Jim or somebody, because there's just a few little things that you just don't realize you need that you
And
would.
that not all power of attorneys are created equal, and so just because
Yeah.
someone says they have a power of attorney doesn't mean they have the
Right.
correct power of attorney.
Exactly, like it
So-
doesn't give you the power to sell real estate.
Right.
Now we got a problem. You just signed everything.
He just assumed once she died that he wouldn't need her stuff anymore,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it was, he
Yeah,
went and got it and he was fine with it.
or the other thing that I've had a couple of times this year are somebody has power of attorney, let's say for their elderly parent, and after the listing, but before the sale has happened, they pass away.
Oh, that dies with it.
And the power of attorney dies, it goes
Yeah.
away upon death. So now what do we do? And hopefully, the personal representative is the same person as the power of attorney, and we're able to get documents quickly. And generally, though, there's gonna be a little delay in closing by the time you get the probate docs. So, but be careful, because they say you'll get to closing, and they'll say, well, wait a minute. This is a power of attorney, and this person, well, that's okay, I'm the power of attorney. Well, that went away when they died. So now we have a problem, and you're sitting at the closing table, and you don't have the right people there to sign. So that's one to be careful of. The other, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, a lot of people sign POA, they should be signing it
Yeah.
AIA,
Yeah.
attorney in fact.
Yeah, title companies will often come back and ask to re-sign attorney in fact. It didn't used to be like that. They used to be okay with POA. But I don't know if with recording or with, insurance, underwriting or what now they want AIF.
Amanda was saying that the power of attorney is a piece of paper. It's not a person.
It's not a person. So, yeah, they used to kind of let you get away with it, but now they want, you are the attorney in fact on the power of attorney document. So when you're signing it, you're signing as the attorney in fact on the power of attorney. So details, but it is good. I mean, if we can teach that to new agents as they come in, it's a lot easier than having to retrain all of us who've been doing it wrong, right? So, I just wanted to mention a couple of Commerce Department enforcement actions. Recently, they're still big on the marketing. So that's still one of their hot buttons. Make sure on all your social media as well as all your other marketing that your broker is on there and the broker is more substantive, bigger, more visible than your name or your team name. They're still looking at that. We're still getting a lot of fines for people on that. Yeah.
When you share right out of Flex, you share it to your Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
you still have to put in there, even though if you click on the form, it has your name and everything on it.
Yeah, it's never been adjudicated. Like, they've never come out with an enforcement action that says it was okay because it was only one click away. But that's always kind of been what MAR has said. If it's one click away, you should be okay. We don't know for sure if that's what Department of Commerce will agree with or not. I don't know, the more it's on there, the quicker it's on there, the better. I know, people do their best and then we just plead our case to the Commerce Department. So, yeah, we can't guarantee. I couldn't come out and guarantee that if it's one click away, you're fine. I just don't know. But I think sometimes that's the best we can do. And so we'll fight for you. That's all I can say. So I'll fight for you on
So
it.
we should have info saying Jim is our broker on all of our things that we're advertising.
No, you're
No,
Keller
no,
Williams,
no,
your
no
name
way.
of your broker.
Not
Not Jim. You don't need Jim's name.
Use me.
You need Keller Williams, Premier Realty. Okay, that's your.
So just our brokerage.
Your
not our
brokerage,
broker.
yeah,
Okay.
sorry. Your brokerage has to be bigger, more prominent than your name. That's the big thing. That's what we have to look for.
Brokerage is Keller Williams Premier Realty.
I
Right.
forget where I am.
Not just Keller.
I know, I
This one's
bet.
Premier Realty, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's a big one right now. Property management is still a huge one where people are not running property management money through their brokerages. So that has been a huge problem where, any money you get as a realtor or helping someone else with real estate has to be run through the brokerage. You can't accept any money personally. And there were a lot of people who decided to run property management companies on the side and not run the money through the brokerage, and the brokerage gets in a lot of trouble and the agent gets in a lot of trouble. So just be careful with that. I'm not sure if you have any that do that, any property management
We have
here.
a new one here now, and I went over it with him. I wasn't
Okay.
quite sure, but the answer should be.
It's a big deal. I mean.
Well, we had a
it's-
policy that we didn't allow in the past.
And
so
that's
that was changed.
90% of all of the Keller Williams have that
Right.
policy.
Yeah.
If you're gonna allow it, we're gonna have to go through and set up standards, because that means your poor MCA now has to write out all the checks, receives
Has to
all the
always
rents,
the trust.
They have a.
set up a whole nother trust account in Keller Williams' name, can't be in their name, it has to be in our name. So it's not an easy, like, we're just gonna add property management. I mean, there's a whole
Right.
process. It's not impossible, but.
It was explained to me that they hired a firm to handle all this money, trust money,
Well, they can't.
trust
You
account.
can't,
They
yeah.
can't.
That was,
You have to
that was
handle
the
it.
whole reason
Your
when we
name has
had
to be on
Tom
it.
and Michelle here, that they
Yeah.
wanted to run Matic, and we said, it's not happening. Our
No, they
policy is
can't.
we don't. If you want property management, you be your own broker and do your own thing.
And that's 90% of all
Mhm.
Keller Williams, or most do. A couple are now opening up a wing. It's like your
It's like
wing,
your
but
relocation
it's
or
part
whatever.
of, it's the brokers and it's
I
your
think we
property
need to dis-
management.
We need to discuss that, Zach.
Yeah, that's a good
They were
idea.
told that they could do this here if they did this operation like that.
Okay,
It's not under me as a broker, it's under.
well, we'll have to talk about it, because things that doesn't know of it. So,
I don't know how they could do it
There is,
and be under Keller Williams
You
Premier
can.
Realty when you're the broker, but him saying not
he's
him,
responsible.
but he's saying he's told he's not responsible.
Yeah, you're
for it, So
responsible.
you're the broker.
It's now your property management
It's your
company.
gig.
I think I'm gonna be broker next time.
But
Yeah, so it becomes like a wing of the company. I mean, it's just another facet of Keller Williams Premier Realty. And everything has to go through here, all the forms, you have to supervise it, just like you supervise every agent, meaning I gotta look at all the leases, you know, all that stuff. Now, remember, if you own your own rental properties, you're fine. It's if you're property managing for somebody else for a fee. When it's your stuff, Chapter 82, Chapter 83 have made a distinction in that statute that you can do that for your own, you can own 50 properties and manage them all, and it doesn't have to come through here. It's if you're doing it for somebody else that it all has to be run through your broker. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's still a big one with the Department of Commerce. Property management is on their radar, so we got to be really careful with that. The other one I'm seeing, which I didn't used to, is delinquent taxes. So agents who have problems with the IRS now, their licenses are all getting suspended. So it used to be, maybe they were slower to do it, or we just didn't see it. They just kind of let them go for a while, because how are you gonna get current if you can't work, you know? But I'm seeing it a lot more. So, you know, if there's agents out there that are having IRS issues, their licenses are getting suspended quickly.
Just
Yeah.
run for Congress, then you can work.
Right, that doesn't matter, but you can't do it with a real estate license. So I'm seeing that.
Different
which is-
standards.
Absolutely.
At least we have.
And the other one that I just saw, huge, I think it was a $60,000 fine, was an agent who they found did not disclose material facts, which is always the biggest lawsuit, the biggest enforcement actions are non-disclosure of material facts. This happened to be mold, where, remember, your seller can sign waivers. Your seller and buyer can agree to do an alternative disclosure and waive all disclosures, and your seller might know the house is about to fall down, but they don't have to tell anybody because everybody signed a waiver. If you as an agent knew something though, you cannot waive those disclosures. So if you walked in and saw that the house was about to fall down or mold on the wall, even though the seller doesn't have to tell the buyer that there's mold because of the buyer agreed to a waiver, you as an agent have to tell there is mold. This agent did not, and got a gigantic fine and suspended.
At what point would that have to be?
As soon as you see it. So I will tell agents that before a purchase agreement, if you did a walkthrough and, you know, you're listing the house and your seller says, I want to do an alternative, you've explained the differences, and they say, I don't want to deal with it, and you explain to your client, that's fine, but just so you're aware, I'm going to have to attach a supplement to the alternative disclosure with things that I've seen.
Even if they do a regular disclosure and don't disclose it.
The same exact thing. You cannot waive your disclosure. And the bigger thing that I'm seeing is agents get that in their brain. They understand, as an agent, I can never waive my disclosure, but they can't seem to put it together with when it's your own property. When you list your own house or an investment property, you cannot use an alternative disclosure, agents. You cannot. So people say, well, I never lived there. It's one of my investment properties. I want to sell it. I'm going to use a seller's alternative disclosure. No, you're not. If you're a licensee, you cannot waive your disclosure requirements. What does that mean? You can't sign a waiver. And they get it, but you have to talk them through. And then they're like, oh, okay, I get it. I can't sign a waiver because I can't. Now, your property disclosure may be the entire thing says, never lived there. I don't know, never lived there. I mean, back in the day when we didn't have the alternatives, that's what your sellers did, right? When they would sell their parents' house or their whatever, your disclosure half the time had 6 things listed and the rest was, I don't know, unknown, I didn't live there. And that may be what you have to do when you're selling your own property is you fill it out the best of your ability, but you can't do a waiver because you can't waive your own disclosure requirements.
Can you do a third-party inspection?
I don't recommend using the seller's alternative at all, but you should do an inspection, right? Because in order for your E&O to cover you here, if you are selling your own property, you need to have a regular property disclosure. That's one of the requirements. You need to have a home warranty on the property. And you need to have a home inspection done on the property.
I didn't know you were required to do the home warranty. Wow.
That is what 99% of all E&O policies require.
Wow.
We will
That's good
double
to
check
know.
with your MCA
Yeah.
and everyone.
Yeah.
But 99% of all E&O policies for
Yeah,
them
we
to
know
cover
what's in
for them to cover a realtor's own
Sure.
property, they will, first thing they'll say is, let me see the property disclosure, and if you show them an alternative, we're in trouble. Let me see that there was a home inspection done, and was there a home warranty put on the property? And often they will let the deductible go and waive the deductible if you've done all those three things. So you want to do that, and you want to make sure that all of your agents know that, obviously. But the biggest thing is that you're just not using those alternatives. And that's why I'm saying use a regular property disclosure and do a third-party inspection. I mean, that's the best way to protect yourself. Yeah.
Why, because I'm getting ready to sell my house.
Yeah.
Few of us are.
Right.
Why do we have to have a pre-inspection?
You don't have to, you just have to have an inspection on the property. So if the buyer does an inspection, here you go, you're done.
Okay.
They're just gonna say, when you bring a claim, we have to go, you call me and say, I'm getting sued, Michelle, what do I do? And I say, well, this is a big claim, we're gonna need to go to E&O. And I'm gonna call E&O and they're gonna say, Michelle, send me over this, this, and this. And they're gonna say, send me over the home inspection. Doesn't matter if you did it, or but if the buyer says, I don't wanna do one, I would recommend that you do one. And
Michelle,
give it to them.
why wouldn't you want to do a pre-inspection though?
I thought about doing it, but I've heard a couple people say no. I mean,
Why?
trying to remember.
Well, I've heard people who say that a buyer is gonna wanna do their own anyway, they're not gonna trust
That's not
yours.
true. I've had my sellers doing it.
Well, but it can go
True.
50/50.
It can go-
There's
yeah.
gonna be
And that-
people
but
that go,
I
yeah,
would still do it.
yeah.
I mean, I would still give it to them and say, you do your own too, like the more the merrier, the more we can get.
I think it
I'm
just covers, it's a CYA, right? It's,
Yeah.
you talk about full disclosure. I'm telling you what I know. I've had a third party come in.
Yeah.
They're telling you what they saw. I
Exactly.
can't tell you any more than, than that. So,
Exactly, and
Well,
that's
and
what these
also,
policies are
sometimes it
about.
does to help the buyer and they'll say, I'm good with this inspection.
Yeah, they might.
well, right, but that's not a guarantee though. That's
No,
what
right.
Michelle's
Yeah.
saying is you're
Right.
just, she's
But
just
I
saying.
wasn't-
Okay.
So we don't do a pre-inspection and we get multiple offers. And so, and they choose not to do an inspection. So I should go back and do an inspection anyway and then
Yes.
give it to them and then
Absolutely.
they have the right to cancel?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They didn't put that in.
Well, it depends what they put on there. If they said, if they put on there that they
No, it's
can't
not.
cancel base, it's not
You gotta figure
contingent.
it
Don't you think if you're doing that way, that they're gonna say, why would you do it now?
Well,
I
I'm just
mean-
gonna tell you, it's way better to get it canceled up front than to get sued on the back end, right?
Absolutely.
So if you could come back to them and say, you did not make this contingent on inspection, you can't cancel this, and you could win right there, and they would say, yep, you're right, I'm buying this
Well,
property.
and bottom line,
Or
I'm a
they could
licensed
say,
agent.
Yeah.
I'm a licensed agent. I'm bound by full disclosure. I'm trying to provide as much information to you. You didn't make this contingent upon inspection, but I still have to abide by my licensure and here you go, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, it could go on multiple ways from trying to protect yourself. All I'm doing is trying to protect you the best we can.
Sure.
It's never gonna be 100%. But from an E&O standpoint, you're gonna want that. Could it cause problems? Possibly, but it's better to cause
Yeah.
problems up front than on the back end.
Yeah.
So
And then-
that's my,
Only
Why
if they
a
make
home
it
warranty?
contingent.
I don't know why, they just want that. E&O wants home warranties on the
that
property.
just makes
I don't know
sense.
No, because that costs the buyer every time they call.
Buyers inspection,
It's
but they
fine.
don't want to give it to you, so you don't have it in your records.
It's fine, because if a lawsuit happened,
They would.
they would subpoena that.
Okay.
It's just, it had to, I would have to be able to tell the E&O, yes, an inspection
A
was
home
done.
inspection was done,
Yes,
okay.
and their attorneys will take care of getting it if you didn't
You
have it.
don't need the report,
You
you
don't-
need
it
to
just
know that
can't
it
be.
happened.
Yes, exactly, yeah,
Okay, so if they don't make it contingent on an inspection,
right?
then you
Right.
don't need to get the inspection.
No, you.
If it's your own property, I would still give them one, just for their information.
Oh,
It's not, they can't do anything about it, let's say, but it's just for their information and it covers you. Because if E&O's, if their attorney said, you didn't tell them, they say, I did everything I could. Yeah, I filled out a property disclosure, I gave them an inspection, I fulfilled my disclosure.
Yes.
It
I agree.
cancel these stuff. There are people that do inspections and don't make it contingent on the inspection, they
Right.
just
Yeah.
want it.
Right.
It happens.
Right.
you
Can
know.
you as a seller and an agent do an inspection on your property, not give it to the buyer?
Yes.
You can.
You can.
But yeah. it's
But
what
you have
know
to
and
fill out your
you
disclosure on
Gotcha.
everything that you've been made aware of, so
Gotcha.
I think it's easier just to give it to them and it
Right.
kind of takes it off.
So
of their
if
hands.
they mark on there that they're purchasing a home warranty, that's good enough. If they don't mark on the purchase agreement,
That's different, I think you're confusing home inspection and home
I'm back to
warranty.
the home warranty now.
Okay, if they mark on there that they're purchasing a home warranty.
Right, then that's
The
taken
buyer
care of,
is.
the buyer is, then that's, we don't.
You know,
need to
they
worry
make
about
the
that.
offer and they'll say, we want one, but we'll buy
Right.
it.
Oh,
Not asking you.
Then
Okay.
that's good,
Then you don't.
but otherwise you need to provide that for them, a year's home warranty.
we're gonna double check with your MCA on
Okay.
this E&O's policy. I can tell you all the other market centers I work with, they have to get home warranties in order to be
I
covered.
hate them.
I think, maybe they're a waste of money, I don't know, but if they save you in the long run and, will cover you on a.
Because here's what's sad,
Small investment.
if the buyer of your home uses the home warranty, they charge them $100 just to come to the house. For
Yeah.
anything.
But here's the thing,
Yeah,
I'm
but if it's
sure,
something
I'm
big.
sure E&O doesn't require that you buy the Cadillac policy,
Oh,
right?
no, they don't make a requirement on anything.
Yeah.
Right,
They
so-
just say, we wanna see the home warranty, the home inspection, and the property disclosure. It could be kind of the bottom one.
Right.
You know.
At a minimum, you want
But
to
again,
upgrade, you feel
we'll
free.
send out an email just to make sure that you guys have to do that here, maybe.
Mine's going on the market tomorrow, I'd like to know.
Okay, well, it'd be good. I would do it just in case. Just agree to do it for now. Okay. Is there any other questions? I'm trying to see. Oh, I had a question about closing gifts. Is the amount $25 or $50? And is it okay to give more, just not to claim more for tax? Interesting.
$25, isn't it?
Well, here's, again, this was another thing that people have kind of come out with this number. Because they're trying to help agents who are trying to figure out their business model. Technically, you're allowed to give gifts, monetary or whatever, to parties in the transaction. That's real estate law, right? Lender law is if you give money or anything, the lender needs to be aware of it and it all needs to be disclosed and okay, right? So we have those two different laws. And then we have tax, right? So this, I think, it often gets confused. Like, are we allowed to do it? Well, you're allowed to do a lot of things. You can't give things for a referral. You can't give money in order to get a referral, but you can give a client a gift. How much you're actually going to be able to deduct on your taxes is a whole different story that you're going to need to talk to your tax professional about. In order to not get in trouble from a disclosure fraud, lender fraud standpoint, I think they put this cap at $25, this number people came
I
up
think
with.
$25 is in RESPA. I think $25 comes from RESPA, but it's not the IRS, and then people get them.
I've never seen the actual number 25, and I know the RESPA law pretty well. I think they're trying to make it as low as possible because they're saying that's not going to give any red flags, right? If it's $25, who's going to actually look at it? So that was kind of the standard that people started throwing out there. Mars started teaching $25. If you were to look up every statute in the world and the entire RESPA language, you're not going to see that number, and so I think it's just more looking at it from a standpoint of best practices and how do we protect ourselves. So they're saying, if you keep it under $25, there won't be red flags and you'll be fine.
And if you give to one, you better be giving to all.
Well, that's just your business practice.
But also, like, you didn't buy.
I don't know, I mean, I don't know the answer, if you should or you shouldn't, or you can or you can't. It's okay under real estate law to give a client a gift. It absolutely is okay. It is not okay to give people gifts to get referrals, right? If you're giving gifts, you need to make sure you check with your tax people so that you know what you're allowed to deduct and what you're not allowed to deduct. And if it's a large amount of money, and I can't tell you what large is, but it needs to be disclosed to your lender. What we run into is agents who say, I'm giving part of my commission to my buyer. Okay, and you're allowed to give money to somebody in the transactions. I'm giving them $3,000. Well, guess what? That $3,000, that gift you just gave, threw them out of qualifying on their loan, right? You have to make sure that the lender is aware of it. So if you're advertising, I give my clients a 0.5% back on my commission, you better have a little script at the bottom saying pending, lender approval, because that is where this issue really we run into trouble, is that you promise these things to clients because you've heard real estate law, you can give money to clients, right? Anybody in the transaction can receive money, but you have to remember there's lender law also. And if it's a cash deal, you're good. You can give people money back, there's no lender. But if there's a lender involved, it needs to be reported to the lender, needs to be on the closing disclosure, and then it's okay.
Only if that's a cash. What if it's like a gift card or a?
No,
They don't need.
no,
to
I'm saying
it's cash.
No, I'm saying any gift. I'm just using a commission as but if you give somebody something worth $10,000, I don't even know what it would.
What if you said, I'm paid for the home inspection? I'll pay for the home inspection if you're you buy a house from me. Is that giving a free gift to get the business? Is that?
No, because they're part of the transaction, so you can do that.
Okay.
You're allowed to do that.
Would have to be disclosed to the lender?
Well, that's a great question. I would.
Because home inspection.
They know it,
usually
though,
from the
because
client's pocket
yeah.
anyway.
With the lender, as long as the lender is aware of it, you're totally fine. So I guess to be safe, you could have it, if it's in there somewhere in writing, because your client wants it in writing that you've agreed to pay for something.
Well, the lender's gonna see that on the purchase agreement, that you paid for it, because you'll say.
If it's in there, then yeah. If it's
That's
on the
warranty, I'm
purchase.
talking home inspection. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
usually
Nobody
that
touches
comes
it.
from the client pocket, so it doesn't matter who pays for it. You don't need a loan for an inspection.
Exactly. It's not
So
something
it's
that
not-
would come out of the settlement,
Nope. it
right?
doesn't come out
I have
of
to think about it. We have to
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah.
But I
But a
think
gift
you're
card wouldn't
probably-
either though,
Well, the gift card is after closing, right?
right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't before the transaction, so. But if your gift card is 10 grand, don't you think the lender's gonna wanna know about it?
I wanna work with them.
I wanna work with them. Well, that's what I mean, like, I think if it smells bad, it's
It is
bad.
bad.
So if you're trying to get around the law by doing it in the form of a gift card, any judge is gonna smell that out. And that's what I would say. So technically, does it need to be cash only I don't know. I think if you're trying to do something to get around the letter of the law, meaning you have to disclose money that you've given, you're trying to do anything to get around that, then if it smells bad, it's bad, right? So, yeah, you have to think about it. How can I do this and get away with it? Usually there's a problem, So, but a small gift, closing gift, it's fun. I mean, everybody gives closing gifts. You can't give gifts for referrals, right? That's the biggest thing with restaurants.
As long as you don't put it in writing.
So after the referral is made, you can't thank somebody with a gift for a referral?
You
Okay.
cannot give gifts for a referral. And people used to say, well, what if it's under $25? I wouldn't do it if it was $2. I just don't think it's a good idea.
Can you wine and dine them?
Not if it's affiliated business or another settlement service. So if it's title or mortgage, you cannot wine and dine them. Because if anything can be shown that you are receiving referrals from them because of your gestures that you're doing for them, you
What
can
if
get in
it's a friend
trouble.
that sends you $1 million referral?
So it's okay to take them out to eat. If a client of mine that I did business with
Right.
gives me the name of somebody else,
Right.
and I'm like,
So-
okay, let's go out to dinner,
Right?
as a gesture of being.
Say this is a.
Is that-
I would tell them,
I'm
let's
not
go to
saying
dinner for
anything.
your birthday.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I mean,
Well,
let's
without
just-
saying that, yeah, I'm taking you out because of this, I'm just,
I would
let's go out
take
to
them
dinner.
out because they're your friend and it's their birthday or whatever.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
And we
want
like
Don't
to get
relate
those
it to
right.
real estate.
Right.
I think
Let's
referral
have-
is just tricky.
They don't have anything in writing,
Yeah.
thank you for the
Exactly.
referral,
Right.
don't whatever,
Yes.
don't claim
relate
that,
it
write
to
it off
real
on your
estate,
business expense as a referral dinner,
Right,
you know.
right. And technically, they're really looking at other settlement services. They're really looking at lenders and mortgage brokers and things. They're not looking at your
Like
friend.
the kickback stuff,
Yes.
yep, all right.
But I personally, why do something absolutely, that you could maybe get in trouble for? I just wouldn't do it,
Can I go back to the material facts?
Yes.
Agent must disclose.
Yeah.
So what if you have a seller who has done some work on their home and they've gotten permits for the work, but they're not all finalized? And you know that, and there's some work that needs to be done. Is that something that you then have to disclose, even though it'll come out on inspection?
Yeah.
Put it into.
It's always better to just disclose. It's gonna come out, like you said, on inspection. So there's no harm in disclosing it.
And you could just say that there's some, you wouldn't have to be real specific on it, but there's some permits that were not finalized or.
You disclose what you know. There's some permits that were not finalized
Okay.
and they hopefully will be, or, you'll discover that on this, but you disclose what you know. That's the safest way. There's no reason to get in trouble after the fact because you didn't tell somebody something that was gonna come out anyway. Yeah.
Are you allowed to do, open houses for sale by
That's a good question.
Well, you can't market another person's property without a contract. So if you have something signed from them, you have to have, because it's real estate, right?
like
It
what?
has to be something in writing.
Just that you
One-time
put together
shelter
yourself?
Sure, but you can't ever market somebody's property without a signed listing contract or contract of some sort. That is the law.
Contract.
You cannot ever market or do anything for somebody else's property that's not yours unless you have some sort of a contract signed. So we would need something signed from them. I have not come up with a document that, we'd have to think about it.
Well, you can
What
look
would,
with
should I work on that? Okay. I'd have to think about it, but I know that you have to have something. You can't just do it. We would have to have some sort of contract with them in order to. I just don't know what that looks like.
Can I wanted, I guess this is more a question for Jim, and I'm not trying to, just beat to death the arbitration disclosure, but
contract.
they sign in the purchase agreement that they have received.
That
the
they have
disclosure.
received, yeah,
And then if I send it to them electronically and they opt not to sign,
okay.
I'm having a little bit of trouble with, now I'm gonna go back to them again and I'm just gonna write something. I feel like that's almost like pushing them, like I'm saying, you really ought to be signing arbitration.
But don't say that, you really.
Right.
Signing arbitration.
So that's
I don't
why
want you
I-
to push that.
Exactly. I'm a little fearful of putting something out there saying, do you realize by not signing this, that it almost sounds kind of scary, like I'm saying you should have signed this. And I think we have it covered when they send the purchase agreement. And if I send
We
it to them.
often do have it covered.
And
we
it's also
often
in my
don't.
email. If I send it for a signature, I have that right in there that says, this is an optional signature, the blurb.
Just
so
give
that's-
us that.
Well, it's in Authentisign. It's not in email, it's in Authentisign, so it goes
So is
to
it
them.
in there in my dot loop?
It's not .loop, it's
You don't see
Authentisign.
it.
I don't get to see
Authentisign.
that. But could I ever pull that out if I needed it? Like, I just look at it from when we get sued, I have to be able to pull stuff out. Can I pull that out?
I'll have to look.
Cause that would be an
Because
option.
I'm more worried about having to go back and get an extra something and then,
I don't think
And
you
yet,
should
what if I
worry
say
about
it
saying to them, I noticed that you didn't sign this. I just want to make sure that your intention is that you don't want to sign this, that you are declining arbitration. My broker is asking us to double check that no signature means decline, means you don't want to sign it. Not that, oh my gosh, I forgot and missed that one. I've never had an issue with it. This is the first market center I've ever, like, it's crazy because I've never heard anybody bring this up.
And
So,
most people sign it.
well, it's less now than it used to be.
Yes.
But now I know why.
And I
The
have
module teaching why we're hearing about it. I've
But
never
If you
done
went
that.
into a Finesign, any of those e-sign programs,
So we can
each
pull
one of
it
the
out.
signature will have the data attached to it. I mean, it's got a number, so it would be, Authentisign would be able to pull that and say, yes, they logged in at this time and they clicked decline.
Right, and we could definitely do that if there was a lawsuit.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot easier for me if I'm gathering the documents for the lawsuit to just be able to pull it out and say, they declined, here's this, here's the email that they were aware. One spouse signed it, one didn't,
That's where I'm just, again, it's like they.
If you're uncomfortable with it,
agreement, they
just put it in a
have
message to me.
arbitration. Okay.
I'm not gonna, this is not gonna be, I just never dealt with this. This is the first market center where we've had.
I just don't like creating more paperwork and then making
I
sure
know.
that it's all the.
I don't like creating more paperwork than we have to have, but oftentimes we end up with more paperwork because of lawsuits. And so then we end up with more paperwork.
Even if
an
it's a
issue,
text and you take a screenshot, file the
that's
screenshot.
perfect. I love
Just so you
text.
know,
I love
both you guys are opposite, so because you're not on the same page, arbitration isn't happening. Are you okay with that? And then, boom, screenshot.
Well, especially in a
Just cover
situation
your
where
butt.
you have one buyer signing it and one not. I
Right.
would for sure want something, but if it's, if they've signed that bottom, now I have to tell you, the bottom of the purchase agreement where it says, have you
Acknowledgement.
received? 90% of the time, we don't get people to even sign that because they don't understand it. They think that means they're agreeing to arbitration when they sign, that all they're doing is saying they reviewed the arbitration disclosure. So we run into all sorts of reasons why it's easier for us to tell administrative staff, here's your checklist. Are there gonna be circumstances where they're not gonna be able to go by that checklist and you're gonna talk to me and I'm gonna say that's fine? Absolutely. But we can't do that to your staff here. We can't say, it's sometimes okay, I know that they forgot on this one and you didn't ask, so now you're in trouble on this one, but it's okay if you don't ask this person. I mean, it's not fair to do to the staff. And it makes it a whole lot more clear for the staff if they can go by a checklist and see.
And just common sense. We know what's going on in our transactions, so just put the notes in, get it so that it makes sense to anybody
so I
else.
can see it. That's what I'm asking for.
To me, it makes sense if they sign it or not. I mean, I guess that to me makes sense. If they didn't sign it, they didn't sign it.
Except for when we had the lawsuits where they said, they never showed it to me. I wanted to sign it. I'm the only party that didn't sign it. Now I have to go to court.
And
it's my realtor's fault. They never put it in front of me. And the realtor says, yes, I did. We talked about it. And they said, absolutely not. And the judge said, show me.
Yeah.
Show me in writing where you talked about it. Where you did.
Well, they signed it here in first agreement saying that I did and then clicked decline.
Okay, but in my experience,
the
there's
problem is the whole sheep and wolf thing.
Right.
Like, yes, this is an elderly woman who says you never gave it to her, and you're the wolf. You know what I mean?
Plus, it's just odd that, you've got buyers where one is and one isn't. Usually, like you said, most of them talk, they get on, they look at each other, what do you think, blah, 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 yes, we're either
And I
doing it
have
or we're
to
not
tell
doing
you
it.
that this has never been an issue because a lot of people, they understand that whether they left it blank or their client wrote decline meant the exact same thing. So until now, I know from this module training why all of a sudden we're hearing about this, because in all our years, it has never been an issue on writing decline or leaving it blank because they mean the identical thing. So I get it. I get why.
You're saying that now we'll see. I mean, it's not just.
Well, in Rochester, I'm not seeing it anywhere else.
But I mean, you're saying that in general now you're seeing more people that are not signing arbitration?
I'm seeing some more real estate companies that are not signing arbitration.
Gotcha.
The public is, you never know,
They've got pretty big legal staff.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. But I don't want arbitration to become like this big headache, like it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be this big issue. It's really like was such a minor thing that I was so surprised when I started hearing about it. Like, why are we even having this discussion? It really is not a big deal. And if there's a reason why you can't get decline on there or it's not, just put a note in there and explain it's not, it shouldn't keep anybody up at night. We are gonna, you know, it really is not a big deal. That I just wanted to make sure you understood our reasons why we had asked for those things. But if it's not gonna happen, it's not, you know, we work through every situation. So does that make sense?
Both of the contracts that I currently have pending, the sellers, I represent the buyers and we signed it and we sent it over. The sellers, one of them didn't send it back with the packet because they wanted to read more about it and think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one just sent it back unsigned.
Right.
And so both of them, I had to go back like 2 weeks later.
So
once my paperwork started being seen by you guys.
Yeah.
What is the actual status on this? Did they intentionally leave it unsigned? Is that
and that is the exact situation we're talking about. Is that'll get turned in us, and we just want to prompt a discussion with you. By the way, this is blank. And they go, and a lot of times, more times than what you're saying, I get agents who say, oh my God, I forgot to go back to them because they weren't sure yet. So it's just a way to prompt.
You know, like everybody signed it and then I'll turn it and they'll be like, hey, you're the only one who didn't.
Right.
Oh, that is.
And that's part of it too.
I certainly don't have an issue of going.
So we have that
agreed.
all the time where clients want to think about it. They want to talk to an attorney. They're not sure, and perfect. That may be the last document you receive back is the arbitration, but we just want to make sure that the document you turned in at the time of the listing, let's say you had your sellers maybe signed it at the time of the listing, and you turned it in with your packet, and we say, oh, there's nothing signed on the buyer's side. Are you sure? Is that intentional? Which it might be. Or had they just not, and it just prompts people to go back and talk about it and figure it out. So sometimes I get a message saying, that's it, nobody's signing it, nobody wants to do, okay, now I know, now I have a record of what happened. And that's all I'm asking for, if that makes sense. But it shouldn't be, I don't want it to become this big thing. It really shouldn't. I don't want it to add stress to anybody. If it's a problem, we'll talk about it, but it really is such a minor, I mean, you have a purchase agreement with or without, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, you know, so. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, try and get back in an hour and 10 minutes.
For us to be hanging out there for 7 years.
About 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just go 80.
Well, good, so then I'm gonna take it.
Even if you're so.
Thank you, it was good to see you again, Jill.
Forever.
How many
Because
years?
we're
No, you're good, you've been good. It's a little more work.
That's why I
than you
got
thought,
it.
huh? Well, you're in-
Just love Wisconsin now. Okay, all right.
Hi, Karen.
you know, and even, but, wait, why are you coming home? Okay, cause the bank can, I have to get the van from Dad in order to fund. No, cause I've got a showing right away. If you could do it right away, it'd be great. I know, so I'm gonna leave work right now and, switch cars with Dad. Bye. Thanks.
Boy, there's been a lot of education around here lately.
We're working on it.